Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Forgive me if my voice sounds a little bit different in this video and for the next few videos in the coming 4 months. I recently got aligners for my teeth and let's just say there are a few letters that I am struggling to pronounce. I'm trying my best though. I'm struggling to pronounce my V's and my F's. Anyways. In today's video, I have some of my best battles to share with you guys from the past couple of days. I haven't found one solid team yet for the Ultra League. Whenever a team works for me a bit, I get hard countered immediately after or the meta shifts, so I'm still trying to grasp the Ultra League meta. But I went positive with the teams I'm going to show you guys today and almost hit early veteran. That being said, I don't think I recommend any of the teams in this video because each one has a glaring weakness, and I will point those out as we go along. But I was struggling to build balanced teams in the Ultra League that would be good against everything, so I've just accepted that I am going to run unbalanced comps. Oh my goodness, I'm actually really struggling to talk. Anyways, as for Scroll Cup, I tried it and I hated it. It's very RPS, so I think I'm just gonna avoid it. Let me know in the comments what you guys are running in Ultra because I need some inspiration. Let's just jump into the battles because I have a lot today and I'll just explain along the way. Also, I can't ramble too much because I literally can't talk. Alright, so the first team we're going to use is Dusknoir on the lead with Galarian Weezing and Tentacruel in the back. Now the problem with this team is that it is entirely weak to Drapion, so when I was seeing Drapion, I was really struggling against it. Also, if I see Galarian Weezing on the lead, which I do in this match, I don't really have anything to swap into it immediately. If I bring in Tentacruel, then most likely my opponent is going to have a Tentacruel answer in the back. So I weaken it with my Shadow Punch from Dusknoir, and then I swap into my own Galarian Weezing. Unfortunately for me, my opponent is running the biggest weakness to this team, which is that Drapion. I am going to take the Aqua Tail here. For some reason, they don't build up to a crunch. Or maybe they did, I wasn't counting. But I am able to take them out with a Shadow Punch, and my opponent's final Pokemon is a Virizion, so we might have a chance here, but my opponent has 2 shields left for this Virizion, and the Leaf Blades are really going to hurt. So I'm going to go ahead and shield my Tentacruel. Let's see how this goes, expecting my opponent to throw another move here. Yeah, it's starting to hurt. I'm going to go for another Scald, hoping to get an attack debuff. My opponent lets it go, which is so annoying. I could have gone for a Blizzard to take them out. But I am going to go for a Scald here against the Weezing. My opponent uses their final shield. So now I'm going to stay in here with my Tentacruel. I probably could have Poison Jabbed them down if they didn't throw a move. But this means I am going to be able to get energy on my Dusknoir, reach a Shadow Punch for the Virizion, and take that win. GG's to our opponent. On to the next battle, we're going to be up against a Galarian Weezing on the lead. Not a great lead for us because Dusknoir is going to lose to this if it is running Brutal Swing, which it is. I'm going to go for a Shadow Punch to weaken it, and then I'll swap into my own Galarian Weezing. Now we managed to draw out a Lapras, and I'm really hoping that this is the only answer to poison types that they have on their team. I am going to go straight for Sludge. Sludge actually does a pretty decent amount of damage to Lapras. And I called that my opponent was going to go for a Skull Bash, so I went ahead and shielded. And then for some reason here, I decided to catch the Sparkling Aria on my Dusknoir. I guess I figured my Dusknoir is dead either way. My opponent is going to come in and go for a Brutal Swing to take Dusknoir out. But this means that we are going to be able to farm them down completely with our Tentacruel. And hopefully whatever my opponent has in the back, we can handle with Tentacruel. We'll see. But we do manage to go for that farm down. Unfortunately, they do get us into the yellow with the Brutal Swings. And let's see what my opponent's final Pokemon is. It's a Credilli. Okay, I don't know if I can still win this, but I go for a Scald and we get an attack drop, which is really nice. We get another attack drop as well. And then my opponent swaps out into Lapras, probably to clear the attack debuff. We go for another Scald, and I get another attack debuff. At this point, I'm hoping that my Galarian Weezing is going to be able to win this for me. I just need to go for 2 brutal swings. I'm going to go for the first one here, get my opponent's final shield. We make it to that second brutal swing, and this is going to be enough to KO. And somehow we managed to get that win. We got so lucky with the attack drops on the Scalds. In the next match, we're up against World Champion Meweedle. This is actually the second World Champion we face in this set. The first one was Yakai at the beginning of this video, but we are going to be up against a Golisopod on the lead. This is a very good budget Pokemon, but I'm going to soft lose the lead, and then I am going to come in with my Tentacruel, which Tentacruel actually walls Golisopod, and my opponent actually swaps out into a Skeledirge. Okay, I'm gonna go for a Scald. My opponent shields it, and I think I have to stay in. I'm hoping that my opponent goes for a Torch Song. They do. I'm able to reach another Scald, and okay, my opponent lets it go. This is good. Now I shield here because the Skeledirge is still a little bit too healthy for my comfort, but now I am going to let the Torch Song go and come in with Galarian Weezing to farm the Skeledirge down, but we get super lucky because my opponent's final Pokemon is a Florges, and Weezing is absolutely going to wall Florges. Now this next match, I'm not really happy with how I played it, but either way I was going to get hard countered. I go ahead and shield a Hydro Cannon from their Greninja, which is a terrible lead for us, and my opponent is going to have the perfect answers for Weezing and Tentacruel in the back. So they bring out a Steelix here, which I'm thinking is good because at least the Steelix isn't going to be up against our Tentacruel. But then I swap out here into Dusknoir. I guess I needed to get a little bit of an energy lead. That way I could reach a Dynamic Punch on Dusknoir before my opponent can reach 2 Night Slashes and get a shield from them. But I will only be able to reach a Shadow Punch, not another Dynamic Punch, so I go for it anyways. At least I can get them into a range where I can come in with my Tentacruel and potentially farm them down. But unfortunately for me, my opponent is going to have the perfect answer to Tentacruel in the back, which is going to be that Giratina Altered. Now I do manage to catch a Dragon Claw on my Galarian Weezing, and my opponent is staying in here a little bit. But either way, this is going to be a lost game for us because their Steelix is still very healthy in the back. And here even my opponent reaches a Night Slash against our Tentacruel, gets us super low. And at this point, I should just go ahead and top left. I don't know why I'm wasting time. I just wanted to go for the Blizzard and see if my opponent was shielded or not. But we are going to take that loss. However, it is still a 4-1 in that first set. So this team is okay, but like I said, it has its weaknesses. Galarian Weezing on the lead and Drapion on the lead can be very tricky. You know what else is really tricky? Malamar. Okay, so the next team I'm gonna run is Lapras on the lead with Galarian Weezing and Meloetta in the back. Speaking of Malamar, this entire team is pretty weak to Malamar. But I ran into Jonkus in one of my games. He was running Meloetta and he did pretty well with it, so I was inspired to use my own, and I have a rank 1 for Ultra League, so I might as well use it, but I cannot recommend it to you guys because it struggles against so many Pokemon. So the problem with this team is obviously we are AVA weak to that Pangoro, because even though Meloetta has access to that Dazzling Gleam, it's still really going to struggle against Pangoro. It's also going to struggle against a lot of the fighting types because while it is part Psychic type, it has that normal typing, which means it's going to take neutral from fighting type moves. And you have that Lapras on the lead, which means your team is sort of ABA weak to fighters. Again, Drapion is a huge issue for this team. But anyways, in the first match, we are going to be up against a Galarian Weezing on the lead, which is a really nice lead for our Lapras. My opponent swaps out into their own Lapras, and I don't like how I play this here because I think I end up investing both of my shields on Meloetta, and then I go for a Psyshock, and my opponent is able to reach another move here. No, never mind. Actually, I am able to farm them down. That's another game I was thinking about. But this is really nice because I come out of that with 2 Psyshocks for the Galarian Weezing, we end up getting both of their shields, and then I swap out immediately into my Lapras. I go for a Sparkling Aria, we get them into the yellow, and whatever my opponent is going to throw here, it's not going to be enough to KO. And lucky for us, my opponent's final Pokemon is a Zygarde. I'm able to go for an Ice Beam, get them into the yellow, and as soon as my opponent sees my Galarian Weezing, they go ahead and they top left. Okay, so I think the next match we get really hard countered because we are going to see that Virizion on the lead. I swap out into Meloetta, and thank goodness they don't throw a move, but they swap into that dreaded Drapion. Of course, okay, for some reason I go ahead and shield. I think I'm going to try to double shield through this. That way I could align my Weezing to their Virizion. Okay, I am able to reach another Psyshock, and I can get both of my opponent's shields. And here I just decide to let my Meloetta go, but my opponent goes for an Aqua Tail. So I have a chance to shield my Meloetta and save it and align our Galarian Weezing to their Virizion. My opponent's final Pokemon is a Steelix, which could be an issue for our Lapras, but then I swap out into Weezing as soon as my opponent brings in that Virizion, and they just go ahead and they top left. Now in the next match, again, we are going to be up against a Virizion. Really unfortunate for us, but I swap into Meloetta and my opponent actually brings out Tentacruel. So let's see how this goes. I am able to land the first Psyshock, and we get a shield from them for the second Psyshock. I know that I will be able to reach another Psyshock, so I go ahead and shield, and I'm going to go for that move now. My opponent uses both shields, and then they swap out of their Tentacruel into their Virizion, and now their Virizion is switch locked into our Galarian Weezing, so this is perfect for me. I'm going to go for a Sludge, and then here I am going to go for a Farm Down. That way I can have a little bit of extra energy for whatever my opponent has in the back. They bring that Tentacruel back in, and because they brought it in, I am going to go ahead and shield my Weezing. I will be able to go for a Brutal Swing here, and then I come in with Lapras because I really wanted to farm them down, but they swap out into a Blastoise. Okay, let's see how this goes. This could get really tricky. I have a lot of energy on my Weezing, but I'm going to go for these Sparkling Arias against this Blastoise to weaken it as much as I can, and then hopefully I can get them into a range where I can come in with Weezing and go for a Sludge before my opponent can react. I even have enough energy to reach a Brutal Swing, take the Tentacruel out, and we take that win. Moving on to the next battle, we are just getting all the terrible leads with our Lapras. We're catching all these fighters. I was leading Weezing before, but guess what? I didn't see any fighters when I was leading Weezing. But anyways, we are going to swap immediately into our Meloetta, and our opponent brings out a Shadow Feraligatr. At least we are resisting the Shadow Claws, but unfortunately for me, my opponent is actually running Crunch on this Feraligatr. I'm going to come in with my Lapras now to go for a full farm down against a Feraligatr. That way I could have extra energy for when the Primeape comes back in, because a Sparkling Aria is going to hurt. But instead of freaking in Primeape, my opponent swaps out into a Credilli. I can go for an Ice Beam, weaken their Credilli, and then I am going to bring in my Galarian Weezing. I can let the first move go. I think I might choose to shield the second Rock Tomb if my opponent goes for it, but they just go ahead and they top left. It was definitely not a game over for them, but that is going to be a 4-1 with this team. Actually, the first game I played in the set, I wasn't running this team. I was running Drapion Double Water. It didn't work out for me, but then I started running this and we got 4 wins. But I still don't recommend Meloetta. Don't use it. It's not that good. Now moving on to the next team, it is going to be Shadow Swampert on the lead with Galarian Weezing and Shadow Drapion in the back. Actually, the next 2 teams I share with you guys are pretty similar. I just swap out the Shadow Swampert lead to Lapras because I felt like I needed a little bit more bulk on the team. But then when I put the Lapras on the lead, I am ABA weak to fighters because Drapion is also going to struggle against Pokemon like Pangoro and Annihilate. So, like I said, a little bit difficult to balance. Oh, also Cobalion started giving me a really hard time with the Lapras lead. So I like this team more with the Swampert lead. It's a little bit squishy, however. In this first match, Galarian Weezing is actually really going to shine. So we were up against a Gastrodon on the lead, but I was going to lose lead with our Swampert, so I swapped out into Drapion when I got both of my opponent's shields out of the way. That way my opponent just couldn't get more energy from farming our Swampert down. We draw out a Steelix, which ends up working so much in our favor because our opponent's final Pokemon is a Mandibuzz. Now their Steelix is still alive with a little bit of HP, and their Gastrodon is still alive, so I have to keep that in mind. My opponent goes for an Aerial Ace, and I am going to go for a Brutal Swing here, which is not quite enough to KO the Mandibuzz, but I do manage to catch the Aerial Ace on our very low HP Swampert in the back. I went for a Brutal Swing because I need enough energy to take the Gastrodon out, take the Steelix out, and then take the Mandibuzz out, and we take that win. Moving on to the next battle, we're gonna get a terrible lead of Credilli. I don't know why I'm losing so many leads, but I attempt to catch a Grass Knot on my Galarian Weezing. Unfortunately for us, they go for a Rock Tomb, and then we draw out a Drapion. Okay, this game is just really tough for me. I'm just gonna go for a Sludge to try to weaken this Drapion as much as I can, but I know that they're still gonna be able to reach a Crunch against our Swampert, and that's really going to hurt. They take us out with an Aqua Tail. They swap out, however, into Credilli. I'm able to go for a Hydro Cannon and then switch lock our Drapion into Credilli. The Rock Tombs are still gonna hurt, and my opponent still has 2 shields left. I go for a Crunch, they let it go, and at this point I can no shield and farm this Credilli down. They get us into the yellow, really unfortunate, and we are debuffed. So this Aqua Tail is barely doing any damage, but we do manage to catch the Aqua Tail from their Drapion on our Swampert. I am fighting for my life here, but I'm pretty sure that whatever my opponent has in the back, I still won't be able to handle. Okay, they have a Shadow Dusknoir in the back. They let the Hydro Cannon go. They still have 2 shields left, which is really annoying. I really need them out of the way. I'm going to go for an Aqua Tail from our Drapion here, but I'm not going to be able to reach another move. And my opponent is going to be able to Astonish our Swampert down, so I can just go ahead and quit. Unfortunately, we are going to lose that game. Moving on to the next battle, we are going to be up against a Fortress on the lead, which is a really nice lead for Swampert. Our opponent swaps out into a Galarian Moltres, and I am going to bring in my Weezing. Now I do call here that they go for an Ancient Power, which ends up being very lucky. I'm going to be able to go for another Sludge, get a shield from my opponent, and then here I decide to bait with a Brutal Swing, and we get our opponent's second shield. Okay, I no shield here because my opponent is out of shields, but they end up going for another Ancient Power, and at this point I can safely shield, and I know that I will be able to win this switch. However, my opponent manages to catch the Brutal Swing on their Fortress, but I can come in now with Swampert and start spamming out these Hydro Cannons. Now I do end up shielding the Rock Tomb here, which is really annoying. That is resisted. I thought it might be Earthquake, so I shielded it to keep Swampert healthy, but that is our final shield. We're able to get rid of the Fortress, but my opponent's final Pokemon is a Golisopod. Okay, none of us have shields left, so let's see how this goes. My opponent is going to go for an Aqua Jet. I can reach a Crunch. That's all I needed because they are in farm down range for our back 2 Pokemon now. I even live the move that they throw, and we make it to an Aqua Tail against the Moltres. We simultaneously KO, and I am going to win that because our Swampert and our Galarian Weezing were still alive in the back. I am going to complete this set in the next day, and I think the number of Lapras leads I started seeing is the reason I started running my own Lapras, but still I don't like how unbalanced the team is with Lapras lead. You guys are going to get to see those battles soon, and I only included them not because I like the team, but because that was the team that got us really high into the 2400s. But anyways, in this match we are going to be up against Lapras lead, which is terrible for us. And I swap out into Drapion and we draw out a Clefable. Okay, we get a shield from them here, which is really nice. I'm going to let my Drapion go now and come in with my Galarian Weezing to try to get as much energy as I can off of the Clefable. However, my opponent swaps out into Lapras and I decide to shield my Galarian Weezing. I'm thinking that this Weezing might be good against whatever my opponent has in the back. They had a Clefable, another fairy type might make sense, but it ends up being a Primeape, so it's a good thing that I saved my Weezing. And I can take the first Rage Fist, but I have to watch out for a potential catch here. Their Clefable is still alive in the back. They bring it in here and they're able to reach a Swift. So unfortunately, I have to use a shield, and my opponent, I believe, is at a Rage Fist, and they will win CMP over our Weezing. They even win CMP over our Swampert. They've built up to back here. So all I can do now is bring in Drapion and really hope that my opponent just goes for the Rage Fist immediately. They do. They are now Energy Dry, and I can go for that Sludge, take the Primeape out, and we actually win that. And now this is the last battle that we are going to play with the Swampert lead. We're up against a Zygarde. My opponent swaps out into a Shadow Ursaring. I'm going to be able to outpace to the Hydro Cannon because they swapped out, and we take a shield from them. Okay, now I am going to bring in my Drapion because the Shadow Claws are going to be resisted. However, the Swifts are really going to hurt, so I have to invest a shield here. I think I might... Oh, no, never mind. My opponent swaps out. I was going to say I might invest both of my shields, but they swap back out into that Zygarde. I am going to bring in my Swampert now because our Weezing has Brutal Swing and Sludge, which are only going to tickle the Zygarde, but the Hydro Cannons are going to do a substantial amount of damage. So we're able to get rid of the Zygarde with our Swampert, and then my opponent's final Pokemon is a Feraligatr. Okay, let's see how this goes. This could get a little bit tricky because we have to get rid of the Feraligatr. I'm hoping I live 2 Hydro Cannons. Actually, we reach a Sludge. Is this going to be enough to KO? It's not. They live with red HP, and I do believe they swapped out with a Hydro Cannon stored on that Feraligatr. So it's going to be a little bit tricky in here. I didn't realize I had the Sludge, so I accidentally went for Brutal Swing. I could have just taken this Ursaring out, but it ends up working out in our favor because our opponent is forced to throw their Hydro Cannon on our Drapion. Otherwise, I could have gone for an Aqua Tail, and then I can come in with Swampert, Mudshot the Feraligatr down, and take that win. Now we are switching up the lead to the Lapras, and we get a really nice lead on the first game, which is going to be a Galarian Weezing. Our opponent goes for an Overheat, neutral again because of Lapras's Ice typing, and then they swap out into a Shadow Feraligatr. Okay, I decide to bring in Drapion, and here I really should have gone for the Crunch before my opponent got to another Hydro Cannon. I think I might have miscounted. Usually when people are swapping in, I don't see the first fast move, and then I end up making that mistake. But we are able to get the Feraligatr out of the way, and then our opponent brings in a Credilli, and I'm able to reach 2 Crunches. The second one will finally get a shield from them. But the problem is now they farmed us down completely, and they have so much energy on this Credilli. I am going to have to take 2 Rock Tombs from them, debuff us so much, and this Sludge is not going to be enough to KO their Weezing. I'm not sure if it would have been enough without the debuffs, but either way, we are going to be able to come in with Lapras, farm them down, and have so much energy for the Credilli. We can go for a Sparkling Aria, get their final shield, and then we even reach an Ice Beam to KO the Credilli, and we take that win. That is going to give us another 4-1, giving us a really nice early climb in the season. And I have one more set for you guys with the Lapras on the lead, but I am going to leave it in as a bonus set, and I'm going to go ahead and sign off here. This video is a little bit longer than usual, But I really wanted to include these last few battles because we managed to get another 4-1 and we climbed pretty high into the 2400s. Also, I hope that I've been coherent in this video. I'm still trying to get used to the aligners. It's like braces, sort of. But yeah, it's only going to be for 4 months. What was I gonna do? Was I not gonna post any content for 4 months? I want to continue to post content, but it is gonna be a little bit difficult for me to talk. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you like my content, please consider subscribing. Maybe leave a like, it helps me out so much. And I will see you guys in my next video. I might have to make these videos a little shorter so that I could handle them. Anyways, bye bye!